The alarm bells rang across the command center deep beneath the mountains of Colorado. Captain Jake Morrison ran to his station, his heart racing. Something massive had just appeared in space above Earth. The screen showed objects that blocked out entire sections of stars. Ships, hundreds of them. "Get me visual confirmation," Jake ordered. His hands gripped the console as the main screen flickered to life. What he saw made his blood run cold. The vessels were enormous, each one larger than any city on Earth. They hung in the darkness like silent predators. Within minutes, every military base on the planet was on high alert. Jake's ship, the Valiant, was one of 12 defense vessels humanity had built over the past decade. They were meant to protect Earth from asteroids and space debris. Nobody had seriously believed they would face an actual alien invasion. The communication systems crackled. A voice came through, cold and mechanical. The translation software struggled to make sense of the alien language, but the message was clear enough. Surrender or die. Humanity had 1 hour to respond. General Victor Hayes stood in the war room in Washington. Around him, leaders from every nation argued about what to do. Some wanted to negotiate. Others wanted to fight. Victor knew the truth. These aliens had not come to talk. They had come to conquer. "We fight," Victor said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We send them a message that Earth is not for taking." The response was sent. Humanity refused to surrender. The aliens, who called themselves the Crithani Empire, did not send another message. They simply opened fire. Jake watched from the bridge of the Valiant as beams of pure energy lanced down from orbit. They struck New York first. The entire city lit up like a small sun, and then it was gone. Just gone. Millions of people erased in seconds. Tokyo was next. Then London. Then Mumbai. "All ships engage the enemy," Jake commanded, his voice steady despite the horror he felt. The Valiant and her sister ships launched toward the Crithani fleet. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain. The human weapons bounced off the alien shields. Nothing penetrated. Meanwhile, the Crithani fired back with devastating accuracy. The Earth defense ship Guardian exploded in a ball of fire. The Liberty was cut in half. Jake watched good people die and could do nothing to stop it. On the ground in Chicago, Lieutenant Amy Price was trying to save as many people as she could. She led a convoy of buses and trucks away from the city center. Behind her, the sky turned red as Crithani dropships descended. They were sending ground forces to occupy what they had bombed. "Move faster," Amy shouted into her radio. "They're right behind us." The first Crithani soldiers she saw were tall and covered in dark armor. They moved with frightening speed and precision. Amy watched them gun down a group of civilians who were trying to surrender. Their hands were up. They posed no threat. The aliens killed them anyway. Something changed in Amy at that moment. She had been scared before. Now she was angry. These creatures had come to her world, killed her people, and showed no mercy. If they wanted a war, humanity would give them one. Dr. Henry Kim worked in a secret research facility carved into the Rocky Mountains. His team had been given pieces of Crithani technology recovered from crashed probes over the years. Now, with the invasion underway, his research had become the most important work on Earth. Henry studied the alien metal under his microscope. It was like nothing found in nature. The atomic structure was perfect, engineered down to the last molecule. The energy signatures were off the charts. This was technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. But as Henry dug deeper, he noticed something interesting. The Crithani built everything the same way. Every ship had the same design. Every weapon used the same power source. They were efficient, but they were also predictable. Henry made notes. Predictable meant vulnerable. Back in space, Jake Morrison made a difficult choice. His ship was damaged and outgunned. If he stayed and fought, he would die and achieve nothing. The Valiant limped away from the battle, using the moon for cover. Jake watched Earth shrink on his screen. Half the planet was on fire. General Victor Hayes received the casualty reports with a heavy heart. 3 billion dead in the first day. Every major city hit. The military was in pieces. Most of the fleet was destroyed. Earth's orbital defenses were gone. The Crithani had won the first battle completely. Victor made the hardest decision of his life. He ordered all remaining forces to retreat and regroup. They would abandon the cities the aliens had already taken. They would hide, rebuild, and learn. Some called him a coward. Others said he was dooming billions more to death. Victor knew he was saving humanity from total extinction. Amy Price led her convoy into the tunnels beneath Chicago. The old subway system had been abandoned years ago, but now it would become a refuge. She looked at the faces of the people she had saved. Children, elderly, wounded soldiers. They all looked to her for hope. "We're not done fighting," Amy told them. "This is just the beginning." The Crethani established control over the major population centers within a week. Their ships filled the skies. Their soldiers patrolled the streets. Humans were rounded up and processed. Some were killed. Others were marked for slave labor. The aliens treated humanity like animals barely worth noticing. But in the shadows, resistance began to form. Small groups of fighters struck at Crethani patrols and disappeared. They stole supplies and freed prisoners. Every human who could hold a weapon became a soldier. Every scientist worked on finding a weakness. Every leader planned for the day they could strike back. Jake Morrison gathered what remained of the space fleet at a hidden base in the asteroid belt. He had 50 ships left. They were battered and low on supplies, but the crews were determined. They began planning raids on Crethani supply lines. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. Henry Kim made his first breakthrough. The alien shields were incredibly strong against energy weapons and fast-moving projectiles, but they were less effective against slower objects. It was a small weakness, but it was something. He immediately began designing new weapons to exploit this flaw. Victor Hayes established a worldwide resistance network. Hidden bases communicated through old satellite systems the Crethani had not bothered to destroy. Slowly, humanity was organizing. They were learning. They were adapting. As the first month of occupation ended, the Crethani believed they had won. Earth was theirs. The humans were beaten. Supreme Commander Vekthar sent a report back to the Empire stating that the conquest was complete. He requested permission to begin the next phase of their plan, but Vekthar did not understand humans. He did not know that they were persistence hunters, evolved to chase prey until it dropped from exhaustion. He did not know that humanity's greatest strength was their refusal to give up. He did not know that every human on Earth had made a silent promise. They would fight. They would resist. They would never surrender. The war had only just begun. 3 months had passed since the Crethani came to Earth. The planet was divided into zones of control. The aliens held the major cities and the skies. Humanity held the shadows, the wilderness, and the underground. It was not the war anyone had expected, but it was the war they had to fight. Jake Morrison had become something of a legend among the resistance. His raids on Crethani supply convoys had cost the aliens valuable resources. His tactics were simple but effective. Strike fast, strike hard, and disappear before they could respond. The Valiant and her small fleet lived in the asteroid belt using the rocks for cover. Target acquired, his weapons officer called out. Below them, a Crethani transport ship moved through space, heavy with supplies heading to Earth. It was guarded, but only by 2 escort fighters. The aliens had grown lazy. They thought the human fleet was destroyed. "All ships attack pattern Delta," Jake commanded. 6 human vessels dropped from behind asteroids and opened fire. Henry Kim's new weapons worked perfectly. The slower-moving explosive round slipped through the Crethani shields and tore into the hull. The transport erupted in a silent explosion. The escort fighters turned to engage, but the human ships were already gone. On Earth, Amy Price had become a ghost that haunted the Crethani occupation forces. Her network of resistance fighters operated throughout Chicago and the surrounding areas. They used the old subway tunnels to move unseen beneath the city. At night, they emerged to strike. Tonight's target was a Crethani patrol that regularly swept through the ruins of downtown. Amy watched them through her scope from a building 3 blocks away. 6 alien soldiers, all heavily armed. They moved in perfect formation, just like they always did. That was their weakness. They were too predictable. Amy keyed her radio. "Team 1, are you in position?" "Confirmed," came the reply. "Team 2? "Ready. Execute." The street exploded with gunfire from 3 directions. The Crethani shields lit up as bullets struck them, but Henry's new rounds were designed differently. They moved slow enough to pass through the shields and hit the armor beneath. 3 aliens dropped immediately. The others scrambled for cover, but Amy had planned for that too. The building they took shelter behind had been rigged with explosives. She pressed the detonator. The structure collapsed, burying the remaining Crethani soldiers under tons of rubble. Her teams disappeared back into the tunnels before reinforcements could arrive. Dr. Henry Kim stood before a holographic display showing the entire Crethani fleet network. His team had captured an alien communication device during a raid. They had been studying it for weeks. What they found changed everything. It's all connected, Henry explained to General Hayes over a secure channel. Every Crethani ship, weapon, and piece of equipment links back to a central network. They use it to coordinate their entire military operation. Victor Hayes understood immediately. If we could access that network, we could do anything, Henry finished. Shut down weapons, disable shields, even turn their own systems against them. But there's a problem. The network is protected by layers of security we've never seen before. Breaking in would require someone to physically access a command ship's central computer. Victor was quiet for a moment. Keep working on it. If we can find a way, we will use it. Jake Morrison was meeting with other resistance leaders in a hidden base on Mars. The small colony there had survived the invasion by shutting down all communications and hiding. Now it served as a gathering point for the scattered human forces. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper was there, representing the fighter pilots who still operated in secret bases across the solar system. Ryan had developed new tactics for fighting Crethani starfighters. He called it chaos theory. Instead of flying in predictable patterns, human pilots flew randomly, making it nearly impossible for alien targeting computers to lock on. We're winning small battles, Ryan said. But we need to win a big one. We need to prove to everyone that the Crethani can be beaten. Victor Hayes appeared on the communication screen. I agree. I'm planning an operation to retake a major city, Sydney, Australia. It has strategic value, and the Crethani garrison there is smaller than in other locations. If we coordinate our forces, we can win. Amy Price joined the call from her underground base in Chicago. My people can provide tactical support. We've learned how the Crethani operate on the ground. Their weakness is adaptability. They follow their protocols perfectly, which means they can't handle chaos. Jake nodded. The space fleet will provide orbital support. We've been building up our forces. We have enough ships to challenge their air superiority, at least for a limited time. The plan was set. Operation Homecoming would launch in 2 weeks. Every resistance cell on Earth would coordinate attacks to draw Crethani forces away from Sydney. Then the main assault would begin. The Crethani were not idle during this time. Supreme Commander Vector had been recalled to the Empire's homeworld to explain why the human resistance had not been crushed. The Emperor was not pleased. Earth should have been subdued completely by now. Instead, human attacks were increasing. A new commander arrived to take Vector's place. War Master Drekthon was known throughout the Empire as a brutal warrior who showed no mercy. He reviewed the situation reports and made his assessment. The previous commander had been too soft. The humans needed to be taught a lesson they would never forget. Drekthon issued new orders. Any city where resistance activity was detected would be destroyed completely. No warnings, no negotiations, just fire from orbit until nothing remained. He believed this would break the human spirit. He was wrong. The day of Operation Homecoming arrived. Amy's resistance fighters inside Sydney began their assault at dawn. They hit Crethani checkpoints, supply depots, and communication centers simultaneously. The aliens tried to respond, but they were overwhelmed by the coordinated attacks. Jake's fleet dropped from orbit, weapons blazing. Ryan's fighter squadrons engaged the Crethani air support. The battle was fierce. Human ships exploded in the crossfire, but for every ship lost, the pilots made sure to take an alien vessel with them. On the ground, human soldiers pushed forward block by block. The Crethani were stronger individually and had better weapons, but humans had something else. They had desperation. They had anger. They had 3 months of pain and loss driving them forward. The battle lasted 3 days. The fighting was brutal and personal. Hand-to-hand combat filled the streets. Buildings burned. The sky rained fire. But slowly, surely, humanity pushed the aliens back. On the 3rd day, the Crethani garrison commander made a decision. His forces were being cut apart by enemies who fought with a ferocity he had never encountered. He ordered a retreat. The remaining alien forces evacuated to their ships and fled. Sydney was free. Humanity had won its first major victory. The celebration was brief. Everyone knew the Crethani would return with greater force. But for one moment, humans around the world felt something they had not felt in 3 months. Hope. If Sydney could be freed, other cities could follow. If the aliens could be beaten once, they could be beaten again. War Master Drekthan was furious. He had underestimated the humans just as Vekthar had before him. He would not make that mistake again. He sent a message to the Empire requesting reinforcements. The war was far from over, and he intended to crush humanity completely. The victory at Sydney changed everything. News of the liberation spread across the resistance networks within hours. Humans who had been hiding came out to fight. Soldiers who had lost hope found new strength. The impossible had become possible. But War Master Drekthan was not like the previous Krithani commander. Where Vekthar had been cautious, Drekthan was ruthless. He arrived with reinforcements that doubled the alien fleet in the solar system. He had a simple strategy to break the human spirit: terror. The first city he targeted was Beijing. The Krithani fleet rained fire from orbit for 6 hours straight. When the bombardment ended, nothing remained but glass and ash. 15 million people died. Drekthan sent a message to all human resistance forces. This would happen to every city that harbored fighters. Amy Price received the news in her underground base. She felt sick. So many dead because humanity dared to fight back. Some of her fighters wanted to surrender to save the remaining cities. Amy understood their fear, but she knew the truth. Surrender would not save anyone. The Krithani would enslave or kill humanity either way. We keep fighting, she told her people. If we stop now, those 15 million died for nothing. We honor them by winning this war. Jake Morrison watched the destruction of Beijing from space. His hands shook with rage. The Krithani were monsters who killed without mercy. They needed to be stopped, and humanity needed a way to strike back hard. Henry Kim contacted Jake with urgent news. I've finished it. The virus that can disable the Krithani network. But someone needs to upload it directly to their command ship's central computer. It has to be done manually because their security systems will detect and stop any remote intrusion. Jake understood what that meant. It was a suicide mission. Whoever went would be flying into the heart of the enemy fleet with almost no chance of escape. But if the mission succeeded, it would cripple the entire Krithani armada. Every ship would go dark. Every weapon would fail. Humanity would have its chance to strike the final blow. I'll do it, Jake said immediately. Henry started to protest, but Jake cut him off. I'm the best pilot we have. I've boarded Krithani ships before. I know their layouts. It has to be me. General Victor Hayes approved the mission despite his reservations. Jake was their best commander. But this opportunity might never come again. They had to take the chance. Ryan Cooper volunteered to lead the fighter escort that would get Jake to the command ship. His squadron had grown to 50 pilots, all trained in his chaos fighting style. They were the best humanity had. Amy Price sent word that her ground forces would launch attacks across Earth to draw Krithani attention away from space. Every resistance cell would strike at the same time, making the aliens think a massive uprising was beginning. It would give Jake the distraction he needed. The mission launched 3 days after Beijing fell. Amy's fighters hit targets across 6 continents. Krithani forces scrambled to respond to dozens of simultaneous attacks. In the confusion, Jake's team slipped out of the asteroid belt in a captured Krithani transport. Ryan's squadron formed up around the transport as they approached the enemy fleet. The Krithani command ship hung in high orbit above Earth, a massive vessel bristling with weapons. It was surrounded by dozens of support ships and fighter patrols. This is where it gets interesting, Ryan said over the radio. All wings execute pattern Chaos 9. The human fighters scattered in every direction, weaving and spinning in patterns that looked random but were carefully coordinated. The Krithani fighters tried to pursue, but their targeting systems could not track the erratic movements. Ryan's pilots led them on a wild chase away from Jake's transport. Jake piloted the transport straight toward the command ship. The captured vessel had the correct identification codes, so the Krithani let it approach. They thought it was one of their own ships returning from a mission. By the time they realized something was wrong, Jake had already docked. The boarding team rushed into the ship. Jake led 10 of humanity's best soldiers. They moved fast through the corridors, following the schematics Henry had provided. Alarms began to sound. The Krithani knew they had been infiltrated. Enemy soldiers appeared ahead. The firefight was brutal. Jake's team used the new weapons that could penetrate Krithani shields. The aliens fell, but so did humans. By the time they reached the central computer room, only Jake and 2 others remained. War Master Drekthan watched the security feeds from his command center. He saw the human soldiers fighting their way toward the ship's brain. He realized what they were trying to do. If they reached the central computer, they could compromise the entire network. All units converge on the computer core, Drekthan ordered. Kill them all. Jake and his team burst into the computer room. It was a massive chamber filled with technology humans barely understood. Henry's virus was on a portable drive. Jake just needed to plug it in and activate it. Simple in theory, deadly in practice. Krithani soldiers poured into the room. Jake's remaining teammates bought him time, firing at the advancing aliens until they were both cut down. Jake ran to the central console, bullets and energy beams flying past his head. He found the port Henry had described and jammed the drive in. The upload began. A progress bar appeared on the drive's small screen. 30 seconds. That was how long it would take. Jake drew his sidearm and fired at the Krithani soldiers pushing into the room. He hit 2 before his gun ran empty. War Master Drekthan himself entered the computer room. The massive alien commander stood nearly 8 feet tall. He looked at Jake with something like respect. This small human had caused incredible damage to the Empire's forces, but his mission ended here. Jake dropped his empty gun and pulled out a combat knife. Drekthan laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the chamber. He drew his own blade, a weapon that hummed with energy. They fought. Jake was fast, but Drekthan was stronger. The alien's blade cut across Jake's shoulder. Jake gritted his teeth against the pain and kept fighting. He dodged and struck back, his knife finding gaps in Drekthan's armor. Blood, both red and alien green, spilled on the floor. The drive beeped. Upload complete. Jake hit the activation button with his bloodied hand. Throughout the solar system, every Krithani ship went dark. Shields failed. Weapons powered down. Life support stuttered. The network virus spread through their systems like wildfire, shutting down everything connected to it. Drekthan's eyes widened as he felt his own armor lose power. His weapon died. The ship's lights flickered and went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red light. Jake used the moment of confusion. He drove his knife into a gap in Drekthan's neck armor. The alien commander fell, gasping his last breaths. Jake stumbled backward, his own wounds bleeding badly. Mission complete, Jake whispered into his radio. The network is down. Hit them now. Outside, Ryan Cooper saw the Krithani ships go dark. All human forces, this is our moment. Attack, attack, attack. The human fleet, hidden until now, emerged from behind the moon and asteroids. They fell on the disabled Krithani vessels like wolves on wounded prey. Ship after ship exploded. The aliens could not fight back. Their mighty fleet was helpless. On Earth, Amy's resistance forces saw Krithani weapons and equipment fail. The aliens stood confused as their technology betrayed them. Human soldiers attacked with renewed fury. Cities began to fall back into human hands. Jake Morrison collapsed against the wall of the computer room. His team was dead. He was badly wounded, but the mission was complete. Humanity had its chance. Whether he lived or died, he had given his people the victory they needed. The battle raged for hours after the Krithani network collapsed. Human forces attacked from every direction, taking full advantage of the disabled alien fleet. Ryan Cooper's squadron destroyed 3 capital ships before running out of ammunition. Ground forces on Earth liberated city after city, as Krithani soldiers found themselves cut off and surrounded. But Jake Morrison lay bleeding in the computer room of the enemy command ship. His wounds were severe. He tried to stand but fell back down. His radio crackled with the sounds of human victory, but he could barely hear them over the ringing in his ears. Then he heard footsteps. Jake grabbed his knife, ready to fight one last time. But the figure that appeared in the doorway was human. A medic from the boarding team's backup squad had fought through to reach him. "I've got you, Captain," the medic said, pulling out medical supplies. "You're getting out of here." They carried Jake back to the transport and flew through the chaos of battle. Krithani ships exploded all around them, but the human fighters kept the path clear. Jake was rushed to a medical facility on the moon, where doctors worked frantically to save his life. For 3 days, humanity did not know if their hero would survive. But on the 4th day, Jake opened his eyes. His body was covered in bandages and he could barely move, but he was alive. General Victor Hayes was the first person Jake saw. The old general smiled, something he rarely did. "You did it, son. The Krithani fleet is broken. We're winning. Jake tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. Hayes held a cup of water to his lips. After drinking, Jake managed to whisper, "How many did we lose?" "Too many," Hayes admitted. "But because of your mission, we saved billions more. Earth is almost completely liberated. The last Crithani strongholds are falling as we speak." Amy Price led the final assault on Chicago, her home city. The Crithani had turned the downtown area into a fortress, but without their technology working properly, their defenses crumbled. Her fighters moved through the streets they knew by heart, pushing the aliens back block by block. The final Crithani commander in Chicago tried to surrender. He stood with his hands raised, speaking through a translator. "We yield. We seek mercy." Amy thought about the millions of humans who had been killed. She thought about the cities burned from orbit. She thought about the cruelty the Crithani had shown when humans tried to surrender. Every part of her wanted revenge, but she was not like them. Humanity was better than that. "Take them prisoner," Amy ordered. "Treat their wounded. Give them food and water." Her soldiers looked surprised, but they obeyed. The Crithani prisoners were shocked. In all their conquests across the galaxy, they had never encountered an enemy who showed mercy to the defeated. It was something they could not understand. Ryan Cooper chased down the last functional Crithani warships trying to flee the solar system. Most had been destroyed or captured, but a few had managed to restore partial power. Ryan's squadron hunted them one by one. The final enemy ship was a cruiser that had made it as far as Jupiter. Ryan flew ahead of his squadron, his fighter damaged but still flying. The Crithani vessel fired at him, but Ryan's chaos pattern flying made him impossible to hit. He returned fire, his last missiles streaking toward the target. The cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash. Ryan flew through the debris field and looked back at Earth in the distance. It was over. Humanity had won. On Earth, the cleanup and rebuilding began immediately. Entire cities needed to be rebuilt. The dead numbered in the billions. But humanity had survived. Against impossible odds, they had defeated an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds. Dr. Henry Kim worked with teams of scientists to study the captured Crithani technology. They learned incredible things. The aliens had faster-than-light travel, energy weapons beyond human understanding, and material science centuries ahead of Earth. But they had something else too. Records. The Crithani database contained information about every species they had conquered. Hundreds of civilizations had fallen to the Empire, but it also contained something more valuable. Star charts showing the locations of other alien species. Some were part of the Crithani Empire, others were independent, and some were victims like Earth, fighting to stay free. General Hayes called a meeting of Earth's new unified government. Leaders from every nation gathered to discuss the future. For the first time in human history, the entire planet was truly united. The Crithani invasion had erased old borders and conflicts. Everyone was simply human now. "We have a choice to make," Hayes told the assembly. "We can rebuild our defenses and hide, hoping no other threat finds us. Or we can take our place in the galaxy as equals." Jake Morrison attended the meeting, still recovering from his wounds. He spoke from his wheelchair. "The Crithani will send word of their defeat back to the Empire eventually. When they do, others will come, either to avenge them or to test us. We cannot hide." "We must be ready," Amy Price agreed. "But we also have a responsibility. The Crithani database shows dozens of other species fighting for their freedom. Species being enslaved and destroyed just like they tried to do to us. If we can help them, we should." Ryan Cooper stood and addressed the room. "I've flown against the Crithani and won. Our pilots are the best in the galaxy now. We have their technology, and we have something they never had. We adapt, we overcome. We never give up. Any species that comes for Earth will learn the same lesson the Crithani did." The decision was made. Earth would build a new fleet stronger than before. They would combine human creativity with Crithani technology to create something neither species could achieve alone. The Earth Defense Coalition was born, a military force representing all of humanity. Jake Morrison was promoted to admiral and given command of the coalition fleet. Despite his injuries, he refused to retire. He had led humanity through its darkest hour. Now he would lead them into a new age among the stars. Amy Price became the director of planetary defense. Her experience fighting in the streets and tunnels of Chicago made her the perfect choice to coordinate Earth's ground defenses. She began training a new generation of soldiers who would never forget the lessons learned during the invasion. Ryan Cooper took charge of the elite fighter command. Every pilot who wanted to fly in the defense of Earth trained under him. His chaos tactics became standard teaching. Humanity would never again be caught unprepared in space combat. Henry Kim led the Scientific Advancement Initiative. His team worked to understand alien technology while maintaining the creative thinking that made humans special. They developed new weapons, new ships, and new defenses. Earth's technology advanced decades in just months. The Crithani prisoners were treated fairly. They received medical care, proper food, and even education. Many of them had never experienced kindness from a conquered species. Slowly, they began to understand that humanity was different from any enemy they had faced before. Some Crithani chose to share information about the Empire. They told humans about the imperial structure, the military command, and the weaknesses in their society. This intelligence would prove valuable in the years to come. As the first year after the invasion ended, Earth held a memorial service for all those who had died. Billions of names were read aloud over several days. Every nation, every city, every family had lost someone. The entire planet mourned together, but they also celebrated. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. They had been knocked down and gotten back up. They had proven that no matter how powerful the enemy, human determination could overcome any obstacle. The memorial ended with a new declaration broadcast to the entire galaxy. It was a message to every species, both friend and potential foe. Humanity had survived first contact with a hostile empire and emerged victorious. They were ready to take their place among the stars. 2 years had passed since the Crithani invasion ended. Earth looked different now. New cities rose from the ashes of the old ones. The architecture combined human creativity with alien technology, creating structures that seemed impossible. Towers reached into the sky, held up by gravity generators. Transportation systems used Crithani anti-gravity tech to move millions of people efficiently. But the biggest change was not visible from the ground. In orbit around Earth, a massive defense network had been built. Hundreds of new warships patrolled the solar system. Space stations bristled with weapons. Early warning satellites monitored everything coming from deep space. Humanity would never be caught unprepared again. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the New Valiant. It was 10 times larger than his old ship and packed with weapons that combined human and Crithani technology. He looked at the Earth below and felt pride. His planet had not just survived, it had grown stronger. "Admiral, we're receiving a signal from the outer system," his communication officer reported. "It's not Crithani, it's something else." Jake's hand moved to the alert button, but he paused. "What kind of signal?" "It's a greeting, sir. They're asking permission to approach. They say they come in peace. Humanity's first contact with a new alien species. This moment would define how Earth interacted with the galaxy." Jake made a decision. Grant them permission to approach, but have the defense fleet ready. Tell General Price to put ground forces on alert. And get me Dr. Kim. The alien ship was small and sleek, nothing like the massive Crithani vessels. It moved slowly and carefully, making no threatening moves. When it reached orbit, a message came through. The translation software worked quickly. "We are the Varine Coalition. We have heard of your victory over the Crithani Empire. We come to offer friendship and alliance." Henry Kim analyzed the ship's energy signature from his lab. Their technology is advanced, but not as much as the Crithani. The ship shows no sign of weapons charging. I think they're telling the truth about peaceful intentions. Jake decided to meet with them. A small shuttle brought 3 Varine representatives to the Valiant. They were tall and thin with blue skin and large eyes. They moved gracefully and spoke through a translation device. "We have fought the Crithani for 50 of your years," their leader explained. "We lost many colonies to them. When we heard that a species called humanity defeated their fleet, we could barely believe it. We had to see for ourselves." Amy Price joined the meeting via video link. She had learned to be suspicious of all aliens after the invasion. "Why should we trust you?" "The last aliens who came to Earth killed billions of our people." The Varine leader bowed his head. "We understand your fear. The Crithani taught the galaxy a hard lesson, but not all species are like them. Some of us fight for freedom just as you do. We offer knowledge, trade, and friendship. If you prefer to be alone, we will respect that and leave." Jake looked at the alien carefully. Every instinct told him to be cautious, but humanity could not hide forever. They needed allies if they were going to survive in a hostile galaxy. "You can stay," Jake said. "But understand this, Earth is not weak anymore. If you or anyone else threatens us, you will face the same fate as the Crithani." The Vereen leader smiled, a gesture that looked strange on his alien face. "We would expect nothing less from the species that defeated an empire." Over the following months, the Vereen shared information about the galaxy. They told humans about the various alien civilizations. Some were peaceful, others were dangerous. The Crithani Empire was wounded but not destroyed. They still controlled vast territories and would eventually rebuild. But the Vereen also shared good news. Word of Earth's victory had spread across the galaxy. Other species that had been fighting the Crithani alone now had hope. Resistance movements were growing stronger. The Empire was facing rebellions on multiple fronts. Ryan Cooper led the first human exploration mission beyond the solar system. His squadron of 12 ships traveled to a nearby star system, where the Vereen had established a colony. It was humanity's first journey to another star. The Vereen colony welcomed them as heroes. Ryan and his pilots were celebrated as the warriors who had accomplished what seemed impossible. Young Vereen children asked for their autographs. Scientists wanted to study their ships and tactics. "I never thought I would be famous on an alien planet," Ryan said to his second-in-command. "But I will take it." Back on Earth, Amy Price worked with the Vereen military advisors to improve planetary defenses. The aliens shared tactics they had learned fighting the Crithani over decades. Amy shared human tactics in return. Both species learned from each other. "Your persistence is remarkable," a Vereen officer told Amy. "Most species surrender when they see they are outmatched. You fought even when victory seemed impossible." "That is a rare quality," Amy smiled. "Humans are stubborn. We do not know how to quit." Henry Kim's research teams made breakthrough after breakthrough. Combining human creativity with Vereen science and Crithani technology, they developed innovations neither species could achieve alone. New engines that could cross the galaxy in weeks, shields that could withstand any known weapon, medicine that could cure diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Admiral Jake Morrison received a message that changed everything. It came from a distant part of the galaxy, from a species humanity had never heard of. They called themselves the Talvarian Republic. They were under attack by the Crithani Empire and begged for help. Jake called a meeting of Earth's leadership. "The Talvarians are 3 months away at maximum speed. By the time we arrive, they might already be conquered. But if we help them, we send a message to the galaxy. Earth stands with those who fight for freedom." The decision was not easy. Earth was still rebuilding. Sending the fleet away meant leaving the planet with reduced defenses. But everyone remembered how alone they felt during their own invasion. No one had come to help humanity. They could not let another species suffer the same fate. "We go," Jake declared. "We show the galaxy what humanity stands for." The Earth Defense Fleet assembled for its first major operation beyond the solar system. 50 warships, including the Valiant, prepared to jump to faster than light speed. Amy's ground forces loaded onto troop carriers. Ryan's fighter squadrons checked their weapons one last time. Before they left, Jake sent a message that was broadcast across Earth and to every human colony in the solar system. 2 years ago, we faced an enemy that wanted to destroy us. We survived because we refused to give up. We fought with everything we had. Today, we go to help another species that faces the same threat. We go not as conquerors, but as defenders. We go to prove that humanity will stand against tyranny wherever we find it. This is who we are. This is what we believe, and this is why we will win." The fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving Earth behind. They traveled through the void between stars, heading toward a battle that would define humanity's place in the galaxy. The Crithani thought they had defeated Earth. They were wrong. Humanity had not just survived. They had become something the Empire feared. As the fleet traveled, Jake looked at the faces of his crew. Humans from every nation worked together, united by a common cause. They were no longer just Americans or Chinese or Europeans. They were humanity. One species, one people, one voice. The galaxy was vast and filled with dangers. But Earth had proven that humans could face any challenge. They could adapt to any situation. They could overcome any obstacle. The Crithani War had taught humanity what they were capable of achieving when they worked together. Other species had longer histories and more advanced technology. But none of them had what humanity possessed: the stubborn refusal to accept defeat, The creativity to find solutions where none seemed to exist. The courage to stand up against impossible odds. As the fleet approached Talvarian space, alarms sounded. Crethani vessels were detected ahead. The enemy fleet was larger than Earth's force. But Jake was not worried. He had faced worse odds before. All ships, battle stations, Jake commanded. Let's show them that Earth remembers. Let's show them that humanity never backs down. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace, weapons ready. The battle for Talvarian Prime was about to begin. But whatever the outcome, the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity had arrived. They were strong, they were determined, and they were not going anywhere. The age of humans among the stars had begun. And nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same.